Dear friends from all around the world, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I cordially welcome all of you to participate in the 15th Interethnic Interfaith Leadership Conference. China has been one of the campaign issues in the 2020 US election, but we have found a remarkable degree of consensus among the candidates. It was a bipartisan fantasy to believe that as China integrated into global economy, the CCP would naturally loosen its grip on power. Both parties now rightly recognize this as a problem. And there has been little partisan disagreement over, for example, targeted sanctions relating to CCP abuses in Hong Kong, Xinjiang, and Tibet, nor have prominent Democrats criticized the current administration's aggressive responses to the threats to national security posed by the success of China-based technology companies beholden to the CCP. By now, the need for principled solidarity should be obvious. Regardless of the election outcome, we should urge everyone who cares about democratic values to deepen that sense of solidarity in the months and years to come. Standing alone, even the United States has difficulty preventing China from eroding democratic values. Dependence on China combined with financial incentives bans everything from domestic policy making to the behavior of private institutions like Disney or NBA, to the tenor of discussions occurring in American universities away from democratic principles. In response to economically coercive statecraft, the CCP is practicing a new kind of alliance like NATO. Marrying economics with the democratic principles is needed. It is the best response to the CCP's own pursuit of a decades-long strategy of maintaining a united front with its allies and dividing and conquering its opponents. What should members of United Democratic Front commit to doing? At a minimum, among many other things which I have no time now to enumerate, they should credibly promise to assist each other economically if any member is retaliated against by the CCP or any other country, frankly, for mere nonviolent advocacy. Regardless whether one favors Trump or Biden, regardless of whether a particular democracy leans center-left or center-right, so long as one claims to believe in ideals like the rule of law, human rights, and free speech, one should recognize that advancing those ideals requires putting aside our lesser differences. The CCP and other autocratic regimes would like nothing more than to continue dividing us along ethnic, religious, partisan, national, or various other solidarity weakening lines. If we fall for it, those who will suffer most in the long run are the citizens of those regimes, few, if any, of whom really want to live in societies dominated by lies, fear, and violence. And while lasting democratic change ultimately depends on the organic efforts of those citizens, those of us lucky enough to live in freedom would do well to not undermine such efforts by letting increasingly powerful dictators play us against each other to the detriment of democratic values everywhere. Our solidarity must become a verb. Thank you so much. Now, I want to introduce His Honorable Mr. Representative of the Dalai Lama, Mr. Ngodup Tsering. He will give us greetings.
Tashidele, I'm pleased that the Citizen Power Initiative is once again organizing their most important annual event, that is the 15th Interethnic Interfaith Leadership Conference. Years ago, the initiative has received guidance and blessings from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, an icon who has committed a lifetime for freedom and democracy, human values, and religious harmony. The Citizen Power Initiative serves as an inspiration to so many people. The founder, Dr. Yang Jianli, has pursued his vision of empowering leaders of different ethnicities and backgrounds through thick and thin under all circumstances. I would therefore like to congratulate Dr. Yang and his colleagues on behalf of His Holiness and the Central Tibetan Administration for their steadfast commitment to empowering the voiceless around the world, and particularly in China. I had the privilege of attending earlier conferences physically, but as we know, the COVID pandemic, which took so many lives and brought economic havoc to the entire humanity, happened totally due to Chinese Communist Party's mismanagement of the virus during the early stages. Due to lack of transparency and accountability of the CCP, the entire world is now suffering. But sufferings apart, COVID has enabled the world, in part, to open its eyes to the evil design of the CCP, a design to eventually control the whole world. That could be more dangerous and destructive in scale and scope than this virus pandemic, I think. The CCP has taken advantage of the non-stop news coverage of the pandemic to incite more repression in Tibet, Xinjiang, Hong Kong, and southern Mongolia. It was recently reported that the Chinese Communist Party is implementing forced labor upon Tibetans, which is yet another attempt at sinicizing Tibetans in a guise of poverty elevation. The list of CCP victims keeps growing. It was Tibetans, Uyghurs, and now Southern Mongolians, Hong Kongers, Taiwanese, and Chinese people themselves. And all religious denominations such as Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, and Falun Gong practitioners. All of us face systematic destruction of our culture, religion, language, and identity. I'm thankful, therefore, that the Citizen Power has been working to empower victims to fight collectively and strategically through their carefully constructed workshops and thoughtful discussions. Let me finally wish the conference and participants a great success, and also thank you to the organizers for putting this event virtually together. I would say this at the end. Roads may be difficult ahead, but no roadblock is big and tough enough to stop when armed with unvanquishable spirit. Thank you again, Tashle.
Thank you, Mr. Representative. Next, we'll be honored and encouraged to receive a message from U.S. Senator Blackburn, who is a major voice for freedom on the Hill.
Hi everyone, I'm U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn. I wish I could be with you today, but Since I can't, I wanted to add my voice to yours and to let you know how committed I am to doing away with these human rights abuses that are so appalling to each of us as we hear about them and as we see footage from some of these. Your conference theme, I really appreciate, confronting the CCP and China in a new era. That is timely, and you are to be congratulated for the boldness that we see in that theme. Many times the world does turn a blind eye to the abuses that are taking place there in China, the treatment that they are pushing on the dissidents, the ethnic and religious minorities, the freedom fighters in Hong Kong. And it seems that only recently some of the mainstream media outlets have allowed these persecuted people into the spotlight, but the true nature and scope of the CCP's abuse of its own people really is largely unknown to the majority of the world. The path forward is to expose them for their steep dive into these abuses. And it's because of the work of groups like Citizen Power and your initiatives that people all across the world are hearing about the horrors of these authoritarian rules and regimes, and people are beginning to speak out publicly and using their voices to drown out the hate and the propaganda that is coming from Beijing. So to the Tibetans, the Uyghurs, the Mongolians, the Hong Kongers, the mainland activists, the Christians, the Falun Gong practitioners, the Macau people, and the Taiwanese. You have a friend in Washington with me and our team. We are on your side as you fight for freedom. It is an honor to join you by video today. Keep up the good work.
Thanks be to Senator Blackburn. Next, we will have a message from another freedom fighter on the Hill, U.S. Representative Yoho.
Hello, I'm Ted Yoho from Florida's 3rd Congressional District, and I thank you for the chance to join all of you here today. It is inspiring to see such a diverse yet united group of people from different religious, ethnic, and geographic backgrounds all coming together for a common purpose. It is this kind of faith cooperation that our nation holds so dearly, as our founders envisioned when they built this country. In fact, our founders believed so strongly in faith and individual rights to practice their faith that they enshrined in our nation's Constitution, not as an afterthought, but at its first among all of our amendments. The First Amendment guarantees the right to practice the religion of one's choosing. No matter what darkness there is in the world, we must remember that diversity and cooperation between different faiths and beliefs strengthens society and leads to better futures. There has to be mutual respect for one's faith and the protection thereof. One of the reasons we are here today is because one nation has remained actively hostile to all ideals that faith stands for, the People's Republic of China. They have systematically, often violently, dismantled or undermined every concept of organized religion within its borders. Many, including Christians and Tibetan Buddhists, have suffered for their beliefs and traditions. However, what continues to be perpetuated against the Uyghurs and Muslim population in Xinjiang and elsewhere within China's border is unconscionable. Over the past decade, Chinese Communist Party authorities have ramped up a campaign of oppression into what has the appearance of a full-fledged state-sponsored genocide on a scale not seen since the end of World War II. Millions of innocent Uyghurs and other East Turkic ethnicities have been rounded up and forced into concentration camps for their beliefs, or their language, cultural customs, and even their hairstyles. The reason for this oppression and canceling of cultures is the Communist Party cannot survive with citizens that have free thought. People of faith like you, like us, we submit to a higher power. We serve our God, whereas in China's Communist Party, there can be no higher power than the party. Government like ours protect the rights of the citizens and empower the people, whereas the role of the citizen in China is to serve the party. Again, the CCP's belief is there is no and can be no higher power than the Communist Party. That is why they and communism will not survive. People are designed to achieve their desires, not a government's command or suppression. The United States has consistently advocated and fought for liberty and freedom of religion around the world. This crisis is no exception. The U.S. has taken a number of steps to hold the PRC officials responsible for their crimes, including multiple rounds of sanctions on senior officials and Xinjiang-based companies. President Trump's signing of the Uyghur Human Rights Policy Act and the House passage of the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act will help hold these people accountable. However, more must be done. Despite these actions, Beijing has remained relatively unscathed diplomatically and economically for its coordination of ethnic cleansing in Xinjiang. The international community has begun to wake up to these atrocities, but they must wake up faster and join us in taking action. Muslim-majority countries in particularly, who have remained shamefully silent during these past 6 years on the oppression of Muslim Uyghurs, must follow the principles of their faith in calling for China to be held responsible. I'm proud to join all of you here today in standing united to saying no more to religious oppression or discrimination, no more to slave labor, and no more to state-sponsored genocide. We have a responsibility to ensure our brothers and sisters in faith are able to worship freely around the world. We must stand to make that change, and together we can and will make that change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Representative. In recent years, we have been disencouraged and even appalled by division among the national leaders in this country, Republicans and Democrats. But the young leaders give us a hope. Next, I will introduce Mr. Caleb Max. He is the co-founder of Athenai Institute that is committed to protecting human rights and defending American values and interests. But this organization is bipartisan organization. It consists of a college student from both parties. So they are setting good examples for our national leaders. Now we have Mr. Caleb Max.
Good morning. First, I'd like to thank Dr. Yang and the whole team over at Citizen Power Initiatives for China for putting on this great event. It's an honor to be included. So my name is Caleb Max, and I am a recent graduate of George Mason University, and I'm one of the co-founders of a nonpartisan student-led organization called the Athenai Institute. We believe our future is at stake when it comes to the Communist Party of China, and among many goals we have, our main objective is removing Confucius Institutes from college campuses around the United States. For those who do not know, Confucius Institutes are cells of CCP influence that are on college campuses under the guise of teaching Chinese language and culture. One of the first steps our group took to accomplish this goal was to write an open letter condemning universities for allowing Confucius Institutes on their campuses. This letter was co-signed by college Democrats and college Republicans all over the country. It was the first time that both groups had ever signed or co-signed any large letter. Since this letter and others like it, we have seen the release of the Confucius Act and many other state-level legislation seeking to remove Confucius Institutes. Many universities, such as the University of Chicago and Maryland, have already removed them, but close to 70 still exist in the United States, and some at our most prestigious institutions, such as William & Mary and George Washington in DC. I wonder how President George Washington would feel if he knew an authoritarian regime has a place on a school in his namesake. Athenai members come from all different backgrounds. I myself am a conservative Christian, but out of a shared respect for each other and a love for the persecuted in China, we will continue to work across party lines to educate students on the dangers of the Communist Party and to protect human dignity. Patriots like Congressman Chris Smith and Ted Yoho, as well as many others, have spoken out about the CCP for years, yet we as a nation have done little to change our policies and take hard stances on China's authoritarianism. If we continue to kick this can down the road, the CCP will only grow stronger and stronger to the point that we will have no hope of reining their evil in. As the congressman and senator mentioned before me, and as we will hear all day from a wide range of experts in this subject, the Chinese Communist Party is committing human rights atrocities against numerous groups in China, including the Tibetans, the Falun Gong, Catholics, evangelicals, those in Hong Kong, and especially the Uyghur people, who are currently being put in detention camps on a large scale in the Xinjiang province. Every time I think about the millions of Uyghurs in these camps, I think of the Holocaust Museum in DC. At the end of the tour, there's a famous quote from Elie Wiesel on the wall that reads, "Never again." It becomes more than a slogan. It's a prayer, a promise, a vow. There will never again be hatred, people say. Never again jail and torture. Never again the suffering of innocent people or the shooting of a starving, frightened, terrified child. And never again the glorification of base, ugly, dark violence. It's a prayer. I often wonder if we as a nation and a world truly mean it when we say never again. Are we truly ready to put human rights interests above commercial interests? Are we willing to stand by as the world turns a blind eye to China, or in many cases goes into business with them? Will we be willing to call out companies like Apple and Disney and the NBA who have knowingly worked in Xinjiang province and refused to condemn the CCP for its violence? Will we be willing to stand up to our university administrators to get rid of Confucius Institutes and other influence on campus? I am confident that we will, but we must act. I pray every day that my generation will wake up to this challenge and fight the good fight. Martin Luther King Jr. wrote, "He who accepts evil without protesting against it is really cooperating with it." Let us hold our universities, our companies, our politicians accountable and work together for the freedom of the Chinese people. Thank you again for having me and my group. Look forward to listening to the events and the speakers all day. And if you want more information about our group, please visit our website at athenai.org. That's athenai.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Caleb. You are such an inspiration. Now we have another young leader from Hong Kong. He is Sunny Chong. So the world attention has been focused on Hong Kong for many years. And during the years of demonstration, resistance against Beijing's encroachment of freedom in Hong Kong, many young leaders emerged. They are true heroes. One of them is Sunny Chong. Now he's in exile in United Kingdom. Now we have Sunny.
Hello, everyone. I'm Sunny. It's my honor to be here to deliver some messages to all of you. We have witnessed how the CCP tried to encroach Hong Kongers' autonomy and freedom. And over the years, we also witnessed how the CCP tried to repress all the people around across its border, including Uyghurs, Tibetans. And we also witnessed how the CCP is getting much more influential and try to impact the liberal international order and try to increase its influence and sharp power in order to increase its power. And then today, it's my honor to be here to talk about the Hong Kong situation. As many may know that since the pandemic, the situation in Hong Kong is getting worse because we know that the movement is getting is going to die down. But however, I can assure that after the national security law, the imposition of national security law, we also can be ensured that many Hong Kongers are still holding their beliefs and faiths on fighting for democracies. We're still optimistic about our future because we know that we are not alone. Today is actually one year from last year from today. We also witnessed the Poly-U siege. We witnessed how the Hong Kong police force attacked the PolyU and the CUHK last year in this month. And because of this brutal repression, that actually induced the Senate passed the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. And this bill is actually the effort by the Hong Kongers, very brave Hong Kongers who fight till their last breath on the front line. Last year, I was invited to testify in the Congress to talk about, as a student representative, to talk about the Hong Kong situation. And now, and previously, I went for the Legislative Council election, and then with other activists like Joshua Wong and Nathan Law, I won in the Democrat primaries. However, you know that the Hong Kong government postponed the Legislative Council, and since then, I was even prosecuted by the authority because I, with other activists like Joshua and some very famous political figures like Jianli Yang, because we participated in a candlelight vigil to commemorate the victims of the June 4th massacre. And that is really miserable. And due to the national security law, I have been harassed and followed by different agencies, spies, and Hong Kong police force. And that's why I have to leave Hong Kong to protect my own safety and to protect the safety of my family. And today I'm here to try to appeal to all of you that we Hong Kongers will not give up, and we will continue our fight. And we also hope that all the people around the world, no matter you are Uyghurs, Americans, Taiwanese, or other people who also realize the threat brought by the CCP, we should assemble our forces and try to create pressure to the CCP. And we believe that a strong United States, a strong free world can help contain China in many domains. And that will be our goal. And we, in the long run, we hope that democracy, freedom, and equality, these conceptions can be maintained and safeguarded in the long run. And we can build a democratic regime in the long run. Thank you very much. Thank you for this opportunity. I hope that we can end this suffering sooner or later. And thank you all of you.
Thank you, Sunny. Now, Dr. Lian Chao Han.